Let me ask you specifically.
Yeah.
Let's go into where this all started and how it evolved in the New York Times over the weekend and how, because to me, this is right and wrong. This isn't left or right. This isn't Republican or Democrat. But
Well, this is American. This is a real threat to our republic. So the story that broke Friday night, printed in the New York Times newspaper on Saturday, was written by three people: Adam Goldman, Michael Schmidt, and Nicholas Fandos. Okay, now all three of them have a track record of despising Donald Trump. So everybody should know that right away. Right? These aren't friendly or fair reporters. This piece was planted. You've heard that phrase, I'm sure, that you plant stories. Both parties do it. They give to favorable reporters a scenario they want to see to damage somebody. And obviously, the headline is obvious. FBI opened inquiry into whether Trump was secretly working on behalf of Russia. Can't get more sensational than that. You cannot. So that headline damns the President of the United States. If you read the article, there's, as you pointed out, not one shred of evidence to back up the headline. When I was in Boston University 45 years ago, our first class said you cannot put a story out unless you have evidence the story is true. These reporters have no evidence. They took anonymous sources, as they always do. The quote is, according to former law enforcement officials and others familiar with the investigation. That could be anyone.
Bill, you do know that Kevin Brock, former assistant director of intelligence at the FBI, he pointed out it's not the agency's job to investigate an administration's foreign policy stance. There was an article in The Hill quoting a former, real quotes, not anonymous sources, saying the New York Times report shows FBI employees were all working outside DOJ guidelines. And then you add to that Rod Rosenstein literally wanting to put a wire on and tape the president, which I guess after you get away with the FISA warrants, why wouldn't you try that?
Well, the article itself is inherently dishonest and never should have been published if the editors at the New York Times had any standards, which they do not. Remember, there is an industry that includes the New York Times, Washington Post, cable networks, and network news that is basically in business to destroy Trump. They're not looking for the truth. They're not trying to inform the American people. They want him out.
But Bill,
okay,
Bill,
so
let me ask you this, though. Isn't it almost all print, all networks, all cable, except for a couple of shows on Fox?
Yeah, I would say it's national media. I would say 85% of the national media is in business now to remove the president. I think that's accurate. But when you go back to this article and you read the article, which is almost impossible to read, a couple of things do emerge. The leak came out of either the judiciary or oversight committees because these three reporters got to see private sworn testimony by James Baker, the counsel to the FBI. They saw it. Now, the leaker didn't give them the testimony, didn't copy it and give them. That'd be a federal crime. They saw it, which means they were shown it. And in that testimony, Baker said, yeah, some people wanted to investigate Trump on counterespionage. Who were the people? We don't know. It had to be okayed by McCabe, Andrew McCabe. Had to be. He was in charge of the FBI. It had to be sanctioned by Rod Rosenstein and by the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. Had to be. FBI agents just don't initiate an investigation by themselves.
Well, let me backtrack.
They have to go through a chain of command.
The same people, the same cast of characters, were the same people that signed off on the dossier. Now,
yes, it's the same crew that did this. But what's important is that Goldman, Schmidt, and Fandos, the three reporters, never even went for comment to McCabe or to Sessions or Rosenstein. Never asked them whether there was an investigation in the first place and why.
Let's look at the timeline. The timeline is you have an unverified, uncorroborated, Clinton bought and paid for Russian, interestingly enough, dossier, not verified, not corroborated, used as the basis to spy on a Trump campaign associate. Now, as Greg Jarrett pointed out, it was a great column out today, over the 10 intervening months from July until May the next year, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, James Comey, and others, they admitted under oath they didn't have any corroboration whatsoever. In other words, nothing in the dossier was corroborated, nor did they have any evidence, and these are their words, not mine, whatsoever that pointed to any Trump-Russia collusion. None, zero, no evidence.
Well, McCabe and Comey were fired, as was Strzok and Page. All four of them were fired. But all four of them were responsible for this New York Times headline, whether there was an investigation into Trump's secretly working on behalf of Russia. Now, let's just get a little humor into this. You and I both know Trump for what, decade? Is there any possibility on the face of this earth that Donald Trump would work for Russia?
No. There's none.
Okay. There is no possibility. There is nothing in it for him. Okay? It's so absurd for those people who actually know the man, know his business, know how he conducted his life. When I read the article, I almost laughed.
All right, quick break. Right back. More with Bill O'Reilly on the other side. Hannity tonight at 9 o'clock. We're going to break all of this down and simplify what can get complicated, but the biggest, phoniest story ever advanced, I think, in my lifetime, and there's been plenty of them. 9 Eastern tonight. All right, as we continue with Bill O'Reilly, author of the bestseller Killing the SS, you do know that the dossier claimed that he was in the Ritz-Carlton in Moscow with two hookers urinating on a bed. He's the biggest germphobe in the history of mankind. And by the way,
but I don't need, look, the dossier has been discredited. If there was a shred of evidence to it, if anything about it were true, it would have been out by now.
Right.
All right? They tried and tried and tried, all right, and it would have been out. So that's dumb. But this is Friday. This is Friday. This is the New York Times with this headline, "Is Trump secretly working on behalf of Russia?" I mean, this is just insane. And I want to get across.
All right, but Bill,
Americans,
you're saying it's insane. This is dangerous. Exactly.
It's dangerous.
This is a threat.
You have a media now allying with a political party, the Democrats, to destroy a president of the United States. Now, if Donald Trump did anything, committed a felony, worked for anybody he shouldn't have worked for as a government official, I want him destroyed. Okay? If that's true, he doesn't deserve to be president. But you cannot, in a free nation, continue to read articles like this that have no information, anonymously sourced, obviously planted, and trying to cast the president in the worst possible light they can. Where is the responsibility of this newspaper?
Bill, I've said for years now, in my opinion, journalism in America is dead. I think
that's really dangerous because the people have very few outlets to rely upon anymore.
Let me ask you that.
Shrinking down.
Bill, you watch it, you read it, you see it. It's breathlessness, it's hysteria, and they're creating if you will, a false belief, a false story, no evidence behind it, but they're telling everybody that this president's going to be impeached because of Trump-Russia collusion.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing happened. We're zeroing in on it tonight on BillO'Reilly.com. Carl, the White House correspondent for ABC News, not a friend of President Trump, all right? John Carl.
Yeah, Jonathan Carl, I have the tape. You want me to play it? I'll play it.
Yeah, go.
But what I am getting is that this is all building up to the Mueller report and raising expectations of a bombshell report. And there have been expectations that have been building, of course, for over a year on this. But people who are closest to what Mueller has been doing, who have interacted with the special counsel, caution me that this report is almost certain to be anticlimactic. That if you look at what the FBI was investigating in that New York Times report, look at what they were investigating, Mueller did not go anywhere with that investigation. He has been writing his report in real time through these indictments, and we have seen nothing from Mueller on the central question of, was there any coordination, collusion with the Russians in the effort to meddle in the elections? Or was there even any knowledge on the part of the president or anybody in his campaign with what the Russians were doing?
I mean, that's Jonathan Karl. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I suspect the worst with Mueller based on the team he picked.
Look, for Jonathan Karl to say that, he said two things there when you cut through all the verbiage. Number one, the article's a fraud in the New York Times. That Mueller knew from the jump that this was garbage and stayed away from it. That's the headline on the New York Times. Number two, that in this overall report, Mueller does not have any evidence of collusion. That's what Karl is saying. Now, he's an insider. He's a Washington guy. You got to assume he's got sources inside the Mueller investigation. Now, why is Karl saying that? Because he's getting nervous. Because ABC News is up to its eyebrows in this, and they're starting to back away. That's the first crack.
Anyway, Bill O'Reilly, his best-selling book on Amazon.com, bookstores everywhere, Killing the SS. Bill, good to talk to you. Thanks for your insight as always. We appreciate you being with us. And BillO'Reilly.com if you want to check out his webcast. Thank you.
Thanks for having me in, Sean.